Hello and welcome everyone. I welcome you all.
Okay, so shall we begin?
Right, so I think this is your first class of geography.
So, what is reminder theorem?
So the RBI comes with a bulletin.
For example, citizens also and non-citizens also. So it is clear now. So abolition of
What is the society made up of?
Just do this exam, better your life is settled.
Getting my point? So the characteristic, as you can see here, agriculture was there.
And atmosphere is made up of what? Can say it is made up of gaseous.
And the loans will be credited to your account. Wherever you want, you can swipe this card.
Ax plus 1 divided by A. Here 33 by 8. 33 is 32 plus 1.
It went from fact-based to substantive knowledge, which means you can only answer the question if you have understood the topic.
Was it mixed? Was it socialist? Was it communist? Was it capitalist?
Excluding food and excluding energy. Core inflation does not include.
Attention all UPSC aspirants, are you ready to embark on a transformative journey towards success? Look no further because Legacy IAS Academy proudly presents its highly anticipated new UPSC coaching batch commencing on May 13th.
Done? Done? Yes, no, people. Yes, done. If people are ready for a pop-up quiz, I don't get scared. I won't do such thing at least on a weekday. Okay, that's for relaxing. So today's class will be one such thing. Today's class mainly will be used for your discussions. I'm not just calling it interview or mains or prelims, but I'm calling it as discussions. See, interview pay, there will be a point of time where a particular topic will come up and you have to give your views about it. Okay, that is not a question they ask, but for an existing question, you have to give your views. One such example, we'll just start it out like that. You know this country called India, right? We have someone called Prime Minister. You know there's a country called USA. There's a guy called President. So the youth of India are posing this question. Presently, this topic is happening. See, India has parliamentary style of system. Countries like USA and such have presidential form of system. And you've heard this line, India's youth are the future and all those things. So this present youth are asking, we are in this system. Okay, the system has a lot of backlogs, issues and everything. Currently, elections are also coming up. Now, elections are coming up, dates are announced, you guys know. At least you're aware. If not the date, you know there's a general election coming up. Which means there is a possibility that the same Prime Minister can become the next Prime Minister or some other person will become the Prime Minister. There is also a possibility that only present party can again come into power or some other party can come into power. It's a possibility. Now, there is a huge chance that the party which is going to come next can bring different set of policies compared to what this party was having. So, the The policies are having drastic shift, meaning, let's say this present party, okay, that is the present one, has started one scheme. Okay, this scheme has been running for past 1 year. The second party that will come, now it will decide, I don't want this, I will cancel this. So people who are believing on this particular scheme now are told that there is no such scheme. So there is a huge difference for them also to adjust. But for us, for the past 75 years, this is how it's been running. Especially if you see your period after your 1993 onwards. We call it LPG era. Liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Post that, we have been having coalition governments. We have been having a lot of policy changes, scheme changes. One party will come. Okay. For example, I'll give you a real life example. So there was this Morarji Desai government which was running. They brought in huge number of policies. Within very few days, the government collapsed. It couldn't run. Next, Janata Party came into power. They removed all the policies of the previous government. Then when the Janata Party, this was happening back in 1980s, 90s period of time. Janata Party fell and again Congress Party came into picture. They removed all the previous government policies. So people are always confused as to one day you have a scheme, another day you don't have a scheme. One day you have one policy, another day you don't have another policy. So this is causing a huge amount of disturbances. Parliamentary system ka one of the difficulties is this. So the present day youth are asking, let's fix this for us. Presidential system. Meaning 4 years you're fixed. The president guy is fixed. No matter what happens, whether the party, the parliament here, okay, they have to make sure in parliamentary system, their party should be in power. They should have majority. Okay, if majority is not there, government will collapse. If no one is able to form government. So there's a lot of tumble on this. We'll discuss this in larger details, but for general information. In this is concrete. This guy, this president guy is concrete for 4 years. No one can change it. I mean, apart from impeachment, but that happens in a very grave scenario. But in this scenario, this is giving more stability. Compared to parliamentary system and presidential system, this gives more stability. Indian youth are asking for this kind. Okay. Now we've been told that yes, Indian youth are the future and everything. If the future is asking for presidential system, then we should probably give it to them. Yes or no? Your options could be yes or no. Okay. Now the same thing I'm posing you. Should we continue with the parliamentary system or presidential system? The same things will come up in interview because this is a current affair type of question. They're not posing it to you as a question. Now you will have a general discussion with the faculty. There you will have a general discussion with the panel members. Understanding? You cannot answer this without knowing head and tail of this. Okay, if you don't know the head and tail, you can't have a proper discussion because any option you will give it to me, I will counter it back with a question. So let's just role play and see. Now I'm posing the same thing. Should we continue with parliamentary system or should we try presidential system? It's open for discussion. So you just give me pros, cons. You don't even have to take a proper standpoint. Just give me something. Let's see. Parliamentary system itself, you want to continue. Why?
Because presidential system is quite rigid and it is difficult to, even if it is, since it's very stable, it's not stable and comfortable, it's like fix it for 4 years, a president sticks it for 4 years, then if he's not the right person, then it might, like the process of removing him or the impeachment would be very difficult. So it can be possible that the amount of power that is having and the amount that can threaten the democracy.
Okay. Right.
We can add some clue about presidential elections that is happening in India. Like, there is a problem of stability, so we can add some stability, like one power is in power. Then it will be like a prime minister will be there for private. Then no one will be like, there will be not any protest or this type of thing.
In which one?
In parliament.
In parliamentary? Come again?
Like in presidential election, I think like it is stable government which is comes in power, it will be in power for 4 years. So we
Yes.
can add this thing in parliamentary.
You're telling you take a feature from presidential and add it to parliamentary. No, then it will become presidential. No, how will it become parliamentary? If you change one feature, then it will become presidential. No. Like one more thing, like you said. Here I'm not trying to demean any of your questions. I'm just telling this is how the panel will back answer you. Any answer you give, they will back answer you. Like you said, if they are there in the power, right? I'll give you another example. I'm not going to name states or government in this. Elections were conducted. This was for a state. Elections are a very costly process. You know that. Very costly process to conduct elections. They spent huge amount of money. Okay. Huge amount of money was spent for one election. Election results are now out. No party came up with clear majority. Okay, no party came up with clear majority. So they decided they'll go for coalition. Party A, B, C and D and all that. Okay. These two parties together decided, okay, we can form majority. Right? Okay, fine. They decided they will form government. One person was picked from here. He was made as the CM. Today morning, this guy goes to swearing in ceremony and he is sworn in as chief minister. Fine, well and fine up until here. That very evening, morning, this guy is sworn in as chief minister. That very evening, this party tells, I am going to come out of coalition. I cannot be with this party. Now, when this came out, they tried seeing any alternatives are there. Whether A can form coalition with anyone. They asked A whether can you form coalition with anyone. Majority was not enough. They asked B whether can you form coalition with anyone. Majority was not enough. So, one day, just that one day, this guy was sworn in as chief minister. That very evening, this party told, I am not going to be in coalition with this party. Meaning, no one was ready to form any majority, which meant the elections had to be conducted again. Let's assume the first time it cost the state 5,000 crores. Now again they have to conduct the same elections for another 5,000 crores. That same money, if you utilize it for the state, you can use it for poverty. You can use it for women empowerment. You can use it for child improvement. You can use it for reducing unemployment. You can use it for giving assistance to your elderly. You can use that to waive off farm loans where farmers are committing suicides. You can actually use that to provide irrigation, water issues. This much we could have used the same money for not conducting elections again, but we had to conduct it back. But if it was presidential system, this guy was fixed. Right? So we could have actually saved so much of money and used it for the benefit of people rather than conducting elections again. Now what do you tell?
There can be possibility that we can do, like in India, we have multi-party system.
Yes.
Two-party system. Two-party participate, then whichever is getting majority, will run.
What difference is it now, one-party system or two-party system? Presently, whatever government is there, it is one party, right? One majority party is there. If that party is not having majority, then two parties will come together. That only we call it as coalition government.
But if only two parties will be there, then one will be having the majority.
Okay, like you said, this has also happened in India. Multi-party. During 2000s period of time, we had was complete coalition government, no just two party. Issue amalgamation of multiple parties were there together. I'll tell you that story also. This also happened. India has another handbook to all the scenarios which can and cannot happen. Your Manmohan Singh government. Okay, Mr. Manmohan Singh government period of time, it was a full coalition party. India and Sri Lanka was having some issues. You will read largely about this in your IR. India, Sri Lanka always has been having issues. Indian Prime Minister decides to go visit Sri Lanka. Okay, that is a normal thing. Head of our state going and visiting one other state to normalize relations. That time the coalition party, okay, I'm telling not two parties, there are multiple parties. Okay, multiple parties were there, which was enough to form just one majority. Even if one person pulled out, which means majority will be lost. All right. The head of state, Indian head of state, Mr. Manmohan Singh decides he will go visit Sri Lanka. One chief minister from Tamil Nadu. Okay, Miss Jayalalitha. If you go visit Sri Lanka, because Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka always have conflicts of fishermen conflicts. They take away these people ka boats, or these people go to do fishing, they tell you are in Sri Lankan waters or territorial waters, which is ours. So conflict is constantly there. There is no denying that. You should not visit Sri Lanka. A person who is just a smaller party, very minute party, this is compared to the majority party, but this person tells the head of state itself, if you go visit Sri Lanka, I will full support. But this person, the head of state, tells that we have to normalize relationships with another country, then only it will be peaceful. I'm telling you a short version of the story, the long version is good. Till the head of state decides to proceed and go ahead. Okay, again, when you are a prime minister or head of state, you don't have just policies or demands within the country. Outside the country also you have. When this head of state decided to go to Sri Lanka, this person pulled out the support, meaning this government could not continue. This led to creation of, again, elections. That is a very costly affair for a country like India. Now, as you said, this is how the multi-party system came in. Like you said, two party means they'll do. But here it is not two party. Here we have parties only, no, for that. We have n number of parties.
We can create that alliances. If multiple parties decided to be in that alliance, then it will be fixed, then they cannot move.
What if a party decides, I don't want to be in both alliances? You cannot tell that. If you are a democracy, you cannot tell that you have to be in one of these two only. Then it is no longer democracy. No. See, none of the things, don't think that I am criticizing you. I'm just telling you this is how the discussions will happen. Here it will not be considered as a question, but to test your depth of the knowledge. This is considered discussion. This will happen. Largely, this will happen in interview. If you have to take a point, which you have to, then you have to get together in a discussion. Now, this is how the discussion will happen. Whatever question you will pose, I will back pose it with an answer. And I will pose you the same question back. So, which system now? Parliamentary or presidential? Okay.
So, like, once the government comes into power, the people in that party cannot move out of that particular.
True.
So, if we make such laws more strong, and we can also put some certain laws that once they form a government, if a party decides to move out of the coalition, then they will also face some kind of.
You cannot do that for coalition because anti-defection law is entirely different concept.
No, you like that. that's something similar.
For the coalition.
Yeah.
But if you bring that for the coalition, the whole concept of coalition is coming in by free will. No one should be forced to form a party. Because then you have something called as political democracy. Your Indian constitution offers political democracy. It doesn't offer social democracy, it doesn't offer economic democracy, but it offers political democracy. Then that entire concept will be down the drain. When you force someone to do something in India, especially with respect to elections, then you have taken away that person's political freedom. What else?
We have like having words. So there might be chance of receiving of power. So it's cannot happen in the parliament system. Right? So we want to implement the scheme. So we will have a debate. And we need a single majority. Like our representative voting whether we want it or not. If that has been snatched away by minister and whatever. So there are chances that people will get the schemes that should have been applied to bring up our countries. So there will be a chance of misuse of power.
Misuse of power when it is with the president. Okay. The question is parliamentary online class into parliamentary system and presidential system में there. India पे we have parliamentary system. Indian youth are asking for presidential system. Should we go ahead with the presidential system or stick to parliamentary system? This is the question. Understood? Misuse of power. We were speaking about. Fine. So now our present party, it is a single majority party. Present government is single majority party. There is no coalition. There could be a scenario, and there has been multiple scenarios in India also, where we have seen in a parliamentary system autocratic or dictatorial type of tendencies. One example is emergency. India had a phase called emergency. Okay. Other presidential countries which are democratic didn't even have that. But India had that under Prime Minister system itself. Now what can we do?
But then the policies were changed. It's like these things were changed, right?
Which things?
Like for example, during the Indira Gandhi time, she changed a lot of laws to enable the emergencies. And
yes.
Then once after that, the judicial will keep on playing, where the constitution, the parliament cannot pass any laws without the approval of, without the judicial, means based on emergency and all this. So that is also.
No, emergency ke liye parliament doesn't have to pass it. Meaning?
Such laws which will enable autocracy or the dictatorship. Now it cannot be done because we have the judicial system that reviews everything, right?
Yes, we have a judicial system that reviews everything, but even today, if we decide to pass emergency back again, we can do it. We can do it in a stringent manner itself. Emergency, whatever now we are talking about, if it is told, for example, you've all heard about curfew. Section 144 itself is curfew. When any area pe martial law is applied or curfew is applied, your ordinary law courts, okay, they remain suspended. Meaning the power entirely goes into the hands of military. Yes, we have some backups where judiciary will play a role. But during emergency, during martial law, if any kind of war or anything happens and if emergency has to be put, the country can again be made into unitary system. Still today we have that provision. No amendment changed that. No party wants to change that, because if they are in power and that point of time some war or emergency comes in, they need the power. So no country changes that. No party will want to change that. Emergency provision we still have. Still we can implement it. I'm not telling we have implemented it, but if we want, we can bring it back. And no party will agree to make emergency less liquid or fluid, because when they come to power and if emergency situation has come in, and India lives in a very high tense security area. One side we have Pakistan telling that I'm going to cut India into 1,000 pieces. Another side we have China coming in and circling us from all sides. Have you heard about Maldives? Newspaper, if you have been following, China's research vessel is going to Maldives. Ever heard that? This is presently happening current affair. If China is going to Maldives, it is something to do with China and Maldives, right? But no, it is everything to do with India's security issues. India is now more worried about China's presence in Maldives because it is trying to encircle India from all sides. So, if any point of time we feel that there is a threat to us from neighboring countries, then we have to put in emergency provisions. At that point of time, you cannot have states telling, no, I don't feel emergency is there. No, I don't like emergency. You cannot tell that. Everything will come at a price. India's security is always at the prime. You all have this concept called fundamental rights. The fundamental rights will not be even given due consideration except Article 20 and 21, but rest, okay, can be suspended very easily in emergency. Why? Because India's security takes topmost priority compared to your fundamental rights. So no one will want to dilute emergency provisions. What can we do now? What should we do?
Go ahead and modify the emergency power.
Okay, it is possible. But why? Why would you? And okay, fine. Why? Let's leave why. What is the use of it? It will be worthy if I put emergency scenarios, right? If I'm not going to use emergency, then why would I need that? The question is this much only. Should we go ahead with parliamentary system or should we go with presidential system? You guys were all giving me a merit or demerit of presidential or parliamentary system. What is the answer? Parliamentary system. Okay. Who else feels parliamentary system we should stick with? All right. Who thinks? Yes, but we have to pick one, right? Presently, we have parliament. Should we continue with it or should we take presidential system? This is the discussion. So we should continue with parliamentary system. See, whenever you say parliamentary system or presidential system, both these are modes of polity. The subject that you so-called study polity. These both are models of polity which is given by the constitution. Constitution in every country, for example, India's constitution tells we have parliamentary system. A USA constitution tells it is having presidential system. Okay, the constitution is telling which of these two we are having. This constitution is decided by, okay, in our case, India's case, by our constituent assembly. Okay. Now, whenever you have a discussion on parliamentary or presidential or anything for that matter, first and foremost point you have to go back is, why did we pick parliamentary in the first place? Now we are having parliamentary and we are debating, should we have presidential or should we go with parliamentary? In rudimentary or very basics of discussions that you will have in the panel, you will always go back to the root. You will start from the basics. In the first place, why did we pick parliamentary? The small, again, whatever I'm telling you, okay, I'm telling it to you in the form of story. You also write it down in the form of story, because these things are not available in any of the books or notes or any such materials. See, back in the days, the very first polity, I'm talking with respect to ancient India. Okay, with respect to ancient India, the first law or the first polity, according to our Indian tradition, we believe is Manusmriti. Okay, please write these down. While I talk, you just keep writing it down. The very first law book or the very first polity that the Indian land had was in the name of Manusmriti, created by Manu, who is considered as the son of Brahma. So when Manu created Manusmriti, he created a polity for the land. According to the polity of the land, good should prevail over bad. Good should prevail over bad, meaning truth alone triumphs. See, one more thing I'll clarify right now itself. You may believe in spirituality or in tradition, or you might consider all those are just built up stories. It could be. Okay, we don't know the existence or exact probability of this, but your Indian culture believes it. I'm not telling whatever Indian culture believed you have to believe. Even whatever we just wrote it down, you can believe, you don't have to believe. That's up to you as your personal idea. But if you're UPSC, you're reading ancient history, you will read something called ancient history. It's done for you? History? Okay. Okay. In that, you will read a lot of things. Whether you believe it or whether you don't believe it, you have to read it because that's considered as a part of India's culture. So similarly is these things. It's not about whether it happened, it didn't happen, whether you believe, you don't believe. Personally, keep whatever it is within you only. Alright, don't go try to argue in front of the panelists telling, personally, I don't believe any of these nonsense and all these things. Don't demean your culture. Your belief or not, keep it within you only. But don't demean or criticize. Critically analyze is allowed. Criticize is not allowed. Understanding? You are not the one who created this or who is running this. So you have no right to just give empty arguments and empty statements. Okay, be very careful on that. The people who will sit in front of you, the panelists, are far more wide, okay, in the knowledge perspective or in field perspective or practical perspective. And they are, you cannot even imagine the things that they have seen with respect to the polity. So don't demean any concept in front of them. Okay, so this is considered, Manusmriti was considered the first law or polity. Post that we have something called as Kautilya. You've heard of that guy, Chanakya Niti and all. That guy wrote two things, Artha Shastra, Danda Shastra or Dharma Shastra. Artha Shastra deals with economic provisions. Danda Shastra or Dharma Shastra deals with the polity of the state. Danda Shastra or Dharma Shastra to do with the polity of the state, Artha Shastra to deal with the economy of the state. Okay. The reason I gave you these 2 points is for a proof. I told you when you're having a discussion, okay? This is a proof that the concept of polity has existed since times immemorial. Understanding? Polity means governance. Someone is there to take care of its people. So the concept of polity has been in India an age-old tradition even before other countries even realized what the concept of polity was. India has been having this. And another side note, do not criticize India. We have bad things. We have things such as poverty, food. People still today, the reality is every 3 child is dying. Okay, this is the reality out of hunger. India pe this is happening. Every 3 children are dying out of hunger. Now you cannot just go out and tell India is the worst country. See, it is letting this happen. You are there or you are going there to make sure that doesn't happen. Understanding? So you will not criticize any part of it. Critically analyze, yes. Completely allowed. No criticizing. So you will actually give points, be it in the mains or in the interview, which will be in a subtler manner. Okay, I'm not telling always go behind them telling all positive things. Just tell it subtly. You don't have to constantly give negative criticism telling India is the worst country. It is doing all these things. So they have faced this kind of people also. And the question they pose back is, if it is such a worst country, why are you sitting here? Leave the country and go. Right? If you so much hate this country, then why are you in this country? And especially you as bureaucrats cannot speak that. You are there to change it. Or you are there to make sure it doesn't happen. Or even if it happens, the minimal and minimalist of minimalist such occurrences should happen. So this point says that, okay, polity, India has been practicing the system of governance or polity since time immemorial. Okay, next item. With the emergence of modern day city-state concept, with the emergence of modern day city-state, put the concept of city-state in quotes and underline it. The emergence of city-state concept led to king hyphen subjects. Led to king subjects. Thus strengthening the concept of welfare-oriented polity. In the bracket, write down welfare of the citizens. Like I told you, very long back, way before we knew about king, queen, human being, all those things, there was this Manu guy whose father was Lord Brahma. That guy created this guy to make sure good will win in the earth. Okay. Now, after that, this we don't know it happened or not. It's purely fictional, but it's part of culture. So just write it down for the sake of answers and for the sake of discussions. Then what happened? We had something called as king. This you know, dudes were there, history was there. King was there. He was there to administer justice. One more thing, whenever you see king and citizens, especially with respect to polity, and if it is for a discussion in your interview, don't tell king was there to rule over the citizens. Okay? That even though that's true, don't use that. King was there to administer the justice to the citizens. A king was there for the welfare of the people. Most often this is not true, but again we cannot tell that this is not true at all. This is also one version of polity. This polity slowly continued, and then we have emergence of your British. British comes to India in the name of trade. That or history they'll teach you in detail. British came to India in the name of traders. Slowly they took over India. Okay, they subjugated us. Okay. Now, this story is where British comes, British takes over India. Okay. India was considered a colony. British was considered a colonizer. A free independent nation was taken over by another country. This country, for polity, was taken over by this country. This is what colonizer means. Meaning, this country did not come to this country for the welfare of its people. This country came to this country for the welfare of its own people. Understanding? Such people are called as colonizers. Understanding? Here the welfare was not for India but for British. This will not be considered polity. This will be considered subjugation. Here it was welfare. Here it is not welfare of this country but for this country. This is not called polity but rather it's called subjugation. This is considered wrong. Layman terms, I am telling you. This is considered wrong and this should not be allowed. No country today allows this. If they try to do that, that is when you enter into wars. Russia-Ukraine war. What do you think is happening? Subjugation. So this happened. Okay. Now this is where our polity stems from. While these people were doing business in India, we know discussion 6, again when you are in discussion, India's freedom, okay, the amount of independence years we have had is very minuscule compared to the year of subjugation that British has had over India. Directly they subjugated us for 200 years. Indirectly they subjugated us for 400 years. And how independent is our country? How many years? How old is India? Whatever number you tell, I repeat.
77 years.
76, 10, 72, 60. This number you have to check and write it. You cannot keep giving odd numbers. Okay? Fairly new country compared to the 400 years of total subjugation of theirs. Okay? Now, in this period, what happened? Our polity. 1947, we consider it as India. 1600, these dudes come in. 1600, these dudes come in. 1947, we got freedom. 1857 period, we are completely directly subjected under the British. Whatever quality that we were exposed to in all these years of struggle, all these years of subjugation was parliamentary form. Why do you think parliamentary form is there? I'll repeat it again. 1600s British came to India in the name of trade. I told you indirectly they had control over us. It was like 1857 directly set stone, yes, from now on you belong to me. That was even back in 1800 itself. But set in stone, clearly it was from 1857 onwards. From this point of time up until 1947, almost 100 years. Almost 100 years, India was exposed to parliamentary form of government. Listen to the words I'm using. India was exposed to parliamentary form of governance. Okay. Write down up until here. Your own words, but it should be like a story or a discussion or anything like that. Please be wary of these things. These are not there in any of your books, but it is very important when you have a discussions. Done? We'll move ahead. When I say India was exposed to parliamentary form of democracy, doesn't mean we were given any democracy. We didn't have any democracy. And neither were we involved in parliament. Which country I told was colonizing us? Britain. This country is considered as the grand old wise person of parliamentary form of democracy. Okay, this guy is the grand old man of parliamentary form of democracy. He himself had the concept of monarchy, meaning same thing, king, subjects. India was also having the same thing, king, subjects. But the concept of democracy was very new to us. Okay, and this was introduced, not democracy. The British never gave us democracy while we were under them. That started only after 1947, only after India became free. But if anything we learned based on experience of all the things that was happening around us, this concept of democracy was on a high rage during this period of 1800s. Technically, if we take it from American civil industry, if you take it from 1700s, people were craving for this so-called concept of democracy. Every country was trying to attain this, and India attained it in 1947. Now, this particular concept was there in the parent country, that is British. They had parliamentary form of democracy. At that point of time, if you look for India, okay, India was having acute death, high amount, alarming amount of death rates, extremely poor amount of education rates or literacy rates, because the British were not here to do any welfare for India. So they didn't care who got healthcare here, who got education here, who got food here, who died here. They didn't bother about that. They only bothered is how shall I take the money from here and put it in my country. This is true, naked truth. This is, you don't have to hide anything. It is as open as it is. So when this country was colonizing us, okay, from I told you, 1857 set stone, these people are, okay, telling India belongs to them. From this period of time, the British tried to set up administration strongly in India. The administration that they set up, the so-called parliamentary system we have, was something they used to administer India. From that period of time onwards, we kept asking, include Indians in the administration, because we also want to see what is it that you are telling that you are doing. Because British claimed it is doing the so-called parliamentary form of democracy or democracy for the welfare of Indians. So Indians started questioning back, few educated Indians or few educated middle class Indians. They started questioning, oh, what is it you're doing? Put me also into the room, let me see what you're doing. Slowly we gained entry into this legislative councils, legislative assemblies. So we started getting first-hand experience of what it is to run a country, how it is we should run a country, okay? So we started getting the first-hand experience of this parliamentary form of model. Once we started getting into this, we started filling up seats. We asked, further onwards, you will get your acts, 1833 Act, 1857 Act, 1891 Act, 1909 Act, Minto-Molly Reform, Small Motor Code Reform. All of this, the one thing we have kept on asking is increase the number of Indians in the councils. Meaning legislative assemblies and legislative councils, nothing but increase Indians in the parliament. So much so that in 1937 elections was conducted where majority of the people were Indians in the parliament. Meaning our country has had almost 100 years of experience in this parliamentary form of democracy. Back in the time when people were not having education, people were not allowed to have education, back in the period of time when people were not allowed to have proper healthcare and all those time itself, India was having first-hand experience for almost over nearly a century. First-hand experience we have had in the parliamentary form of democracy. Now remember, I used one word, middle-class educated Indians. The middle-class educated Indians were none other than your freedom fighters who played a major role. I'm not telling everyone were middle class, but there was a certain sections who were all advocates or lawyers, including the man who is sitting right there. So we started having an educated middle class intelligentsia which started observing everything going on around the world. One thing they found, yes, this parliamentary system, one of the merits, if you have to tell something, for a country which was not yet born, India we tell is born 1947. Okay? The free India that we have, this country experienced direct first-hand experience for almost over 100 years in this form of democracy. Now in 1947, when they were to create the new model of democracy, two things. First thing, 100 years of experience is there. Meaning, the upcoming generation, whether it is going to be educated, uneducated, by education, I mean that comparatively to others, whether we are able to give education or not, whether we are able to give literacy or not, whether there is healthcare or not, if they could survive this model back then this generation will for sure survive this form. Understanding, it is one small assumption, that's it. If we, with all of our circumstances, could survive this, then you, where you are there, India is there for the welfare of its people. Okay? The citizens, the so-called citizens. Remember, I told you with respect to British and India, British was not there for welfare of India. But here, India is there for the welfare of its citizens. Thus transforming into what we call as welfare state. This is a terminology that you have to use in your Indian polity, no matter what the question is. India today tries and aspires to be a welfare state, meaning what? India is there for the welfare of its citizens. If back then we could survive this, then you for sure will survive this. That is one of the points why we are having parliament system. The second thing is, I told you presidential system has stability. But there is one thing presidential system doesn't have and parliamentary system has. Accountability. Why we had importance of accountability or responsibility. Again, this also stems because of the British. British had one concept. You have something called legislature. We have explained so much time and again that is nothing but your Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha and all these things. We have something called legislature. We have something called executive. Yes, this is your PM, CM, COM, all those things. Prime Minister, Chief Minister, Council of Ministers, all these things. Yes. This period of time, what I am talking about, is the period of time from 1857 to 1947 period. Okay. Legislature here is usually law-making body. This law-making body largely comprised of your British. Okay. This executive by top posts were also comprised of British. Understanding? Give it up until here. In the presidential system, there's something called legislature. There's something called the executive. Your president is this executive. The law members, the law-making body, the so-called Congress, Democrats and Republicans, are the legislature. According to presidential system, this person is not answerable to this. He can do whatever laws, policies, acts that he wants. Why? Because he's not a part of this. He is not part of the Congress. I'm strictly talking from US point of view. This person is not a person from Congress. Understanding? Meaning, not a person from Congress means he doesn't have to attend any Congress sessions. He can just do what he is meant for do. President, that's it. So, he is not answerable to them. This period that I'm talking about now, we're coming back to parliamentary system, and especially under your British 1857 to 1947 period. The British, whoever was making laws, okay, they could make laws, they could implement laws, but these people were answerable to these people. Meaning, they cannot go on doing some Tom, Dick and Harry things they wanted. Whatever acts, policies, any implementation they did and they didn't do, they were answerable to these people, and these people were directly elected by the people. And these people had a fear of these people. Why? Because if they lose their majority, then they are done. They will lose their majority means they have lost the majority of people. So here the people are having the upper hand. And for a vast country like India, where these people were not even given a voice, this method feels better or this method feels better? Here people, nothing. This guy is elected, this guy will continue. He is not answerable to any people elected by people. Here he is answerable to them. He is responsible to them. He is accountable to them. Meaning indirectly he is answerable to the people. He is answerable and he is responsible towards the people. And he will lose the support or he will not be in power if these people of support he has lost. So for us, more than stability for a country whose voice was taken away. This particular line you can use it in your mains as well as in your discussion. For a country, okay, a billions of country whose voice was taken away, parliamentary form of governance gave the people their voices back to voice out their opinions. So we preferred stability. Okay, we preferred accountability or responsibility over stability. That is the reason why we are still picking a responsibility or accountability over stability. That is why we are picking parliamentary system over presidential system. Demerits are there for both systems equally. This is no better. This is not at all better because we see tendencies of autocracy here. We see tendency of dictatorship here. But the same you cannot tell it here. But there is also sort of autocratic behaviors we see here. There is also tendency of dictatorship we observe here. Demerits are there for both systems. But why India chooses and still is continuing with parliamentary system is because of this. This should be your primary argument when it is in discussion with respect to UPSC mains or interview. Understood? Write it down in your own words. Done? See, the same arguments, whatever we discussed, can be used for another question that is in the same thing. The Constitution of India, how old is it? You have something called Constitution. How old is the Constitution of India?
74 years.
Almost 1950 it came into force. Okay, 1956 we have adopted it. When people tell we can form a new constitution, right? See, everything what we discussed applies there. See, your 1947, okay, freedom of India created freedom for all aspects, from human beings living in India to consider them as citizens. Right? Now, your so-called constitution was set up by something called as Constituent Assembly. Your constitution was set up by something called as Constituent Assembly, who were nothing but freedom fighters, okay, who were very much into the forefront of playing active role in freedom for India. Now, this constitution, like as we said, today if we want, we can change it. That is where your judiciary and all will come in. Constitution has created 3 organs: legislative, executive, judiciary. Okay. Legislative is nothing but your Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and all those. Executive is your Prime Minister, Council of Ministers. Judiciary is your Supreme Court, High Court, Subordinate Court, all of those. The Constitution has created this. Your Constitution is a living, breathing body. Okay? Even though it's just a book which contains rule, we strictly call it as a living, breathing body which proceeds to grow, which proceeds to live. Understanding? Now, throughout the world, all of the countries, still today, if they are fighting, it is for one thing, that is freedom, or whatever we call as independence. We do not want subjugation. Whatever we said British did for India, colony, colonizer, right? That is called subjugation. No country wants to be subjugated. All the countries want to be free. Okay? This freedom was not easily achieved, especially for 2 kind of countries. See, in countries, if you look at it from the economic perspective, you have 3 things: developed country, developing country, and least developed country. In this majority of the countries, when I'm telling majority, there are also some countries in the developed list. For example, Japan, which was also once colonized by your colonizers. Okay, like your Britain. Majority of these countries, developing country and least developed countries, were all once subjugated. In this list comes majority of your Asia plus African countries. All the Asian plus African plus South American countries. All these lists. Okay, these countries were all subjugated by your so-called Britain. Okay. Now, if you look at it, all of these countries fought for one thing: freedom. Everyone attained this freedom in different period of time. For example, South Africa, you've heard about Nelson Mandela, right? That country got freedom at a very later stage than us. If you look at your Southeast Asian countries, similar issue. Okay, every country has fought for one thing. From this perspective, it is very important to write down. Continue up until here, then I'll make the next point. Done? All the countries is a portfolio. It should be in this order: developed country, developing country, least developed countries. All these countries fought for the concept of freedom over the period of time. Okay. Now, one other thing. Okay. Every country throughout the world hated this concept of subjugation, colonialism. Colonialism is what we discussed. Colony, colonizer. Okay. Imperialism. What British did was for their gains, they took over part of India for their. So this concept of subjugation, colonialism, imperialism, okay, all of these things were a hated concept. No one wanted to publicly be known as doing these things. No country wanted to undergo these things. Understanding? These were in the for 19th-20th century period of time. These words started becoming more and more hated. Okay. In a very polished version of this started coming is your capitalism. This is agreed. Because here directly you're not rolling over them, indirectly you're rolling over them. It's a very different concept that you will care here in your international. So this particular concept became very hated in the period of 19th-20th century. The term or the phrase or the ideology that everyone started loving was freedom, independence, and they realized that this too was largely offered in this method. In the 19th-20th century, up until 19th-20th century, this was what was happening. They started hating this. The whole of the world. Okay. Even the people who were doing this, they didn't want them to be called as this. Today, even British doesn't want to be called any of these names, even though British is this. Or British was doing this to all the countries it has did, but it doesn't want to be called any of these things. Because it is seen in a very negative limelight. But every country wanted this. Okay, every country wanted freedom, every country wanted to have independence. That is by every country, all of your least developed countries, your developing countries, that is your Asian countries, African countries, and your South American countries. So everyone wanted freedom, everyone wanted independence, and they realized the one model they were getting was through this democracy. Okay? Write down this thing. Done? Clear up until here? Any doubts? Anything you didn't understand? Clear? So in 19th-20th century, the world started rallying behind democracy. This is the exact word you would use either in your discussions or in your mains answer. The world started, 19th and 20th century, world started rallying behind the ideals of democracy. Understanding? Now this democracy, a little bit in detail if we are going to go, this particular concept, okay? Father, if you have to call father of democracy or this concept was this guy. Aristotle. Now this guy used to phrase, right? How this democracy is actually is very aptly put by this guy itself. Okay, that is the true meaning of democracy. In mains answer, whenever you have to speak something about democracy, use two ways. This Aristotle guy. One more is self-determination. The to the people, by the people, for the people. That is one. Another thing is this guy. It's very interesting. And it's actually very, very precise. He says, for the polity. Polity is not even government. Someone is going to administer. Of all the systems we have. Okay? He says, democracy is one of the worst systems, but it is better compared to other existing systems. So, democracy is least worst of all the existing ones. He himself tells it is worst. But compared to autocracy, compared to aristocracy, compared to your hypocrisy, that has also been seen with respect to the world. Compared to all the models of polity we have, this is the least worst model. He never went ahead and told this is the best. Democracy is never the best. It is full of flaws. It is full of faults. But in whatever we have had up until now, this is the least worst model of polity. And that is true. He himself has told them. So this is what will be your base educator. You see, democracy is having a lot of flaws, isn't it? The panel will ask you this. Isn't it? Democracy is having a lot of flaws. And still, why do we yet want to continue with this? And still, why is the world rallying behind this? Russia-Ukraine war case, you see one thing. Everywhere they kept using this. Ukraine kept using Russia is murdering our democracy. Okay? Russia in turn claimed Ukraine is neo-Nazi of democracy. Everyone kept using this word because all the other words that I used, colonialism, imperialism, all of those are seen in negative shade. But this concept of democracy, this concept of freedom, this concept of independence was seen in a very positive shade. So why we are still continuing with democracy is just this. Of all the existing models that known to humanity or humankind up until now, this is the least worst model. That's all is the explanation. It is worst, but in the existing ones, it's the least worst. That is why we are picking this and using this. That is why we still pick democracy. And see, any model that anyone is using, it is all having flaws. We are using it is because it is least worst.
Legacy IAS Academy, Bengaluru. Interested in pursuing a career as an IAS and IPS officer? Admissions open for civil services coaching. The start date for classes is May 13th. For admissions, contact 96069 00002 96069.
It is like negative shade. Even the people.
Legacy IAS Academy, Bengaluru. Interested in pursuing a career as an IAS and IPS officer? Admissions open for civil services coaching. The start date for classes is May 13th. For admissions, contact 96069 00002 96069 00004.